Welcome to another episode. My name is Dean Vassy. You can find me on X at #Kangas, Instagram #Kangaroos Podcast. Tonight I'm joined by my Thursday correspondent regular, Siobhan Rowe. Thanks for coming on tonight, Siobhan. We're on the eve of our season starting Saturday night, less than 48 hours now. How are you feeling about it all?
Hi, Dean. Great to be with you. How bloody good is footy being back? It just feels so exciting. And what's even more exciting is that it's a genuine chance for us to get our season off to a good start and by getting a win. Exciting to see the team out. It's the first Thursday in a long time that we've seen the boys on the app and the phone notification coming up that the teams are out. So it's a real big buzz and a lot to discuss. The team it's an exciting young lineup, lots of established players, lots of young stars in there, and a team that I truly believe can win round one. So feeling really optimistic, really excited, and just can't wait to be there on Saturday and get the season underway and feel the atmosphere of being back at the ground. It's been too long without footy, and I think this is a really big year for our boys. So I bet you're probably feeling the same way, but just can't wait for Saturday to roll around.
No, definitely. It's probably snuck up on us the last few weeks, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's here already. Going to be a hot one Saturday. I don't know how hot it's going to be Saturday night. It'll probably still be quite warm, but 37 during the day. So, yeah, test of resilience and endurance, that's for sure. Now, before we get into the team selection, I just want to get your thoughts. Now, Clarko has talked about this off-season, about being more competitive this year and into games at least by three-quarter time. He even mentioned that in today's press conference. Yep. How do you see it? Do you want us to be in more games at three-quarter time and have less wins, or would you rather see more wins and not worrying about being blown out more times? Like, let's say we get 6 wins and we've had about 5 or 6 bad losses, or would you rather have 4 or 5 wins and being more competitive in games?
I think the latter, Dina. I enjoyed his press conference today because he raised a couple of really good points. I think through good luck, I completely forgot that we actually started the season last year 0-11. So it was a really awful way to start the year, and I think the air came out of the tyres a lot. And then we saw a different side after the bye, and I think that was the real key difference. And we've spoken a lot about this on the podcast, but unfortunately this side just doesn't know how to win. And he's speaking a lot about just finding belief, and that's why they brought across Darling and Parker and Daniel and these guys that have been from other clubs where they've had success and seen the tough times, but have built a winning culture, which I think we need. The only way to build a winning culture and instill belief is by winning games. And there's a real chance to do that in round one. And I said to you off there just before, I know this sounds very dramatic and I'm sure there'll be feedback on this comment, but I'm not saying the whole season's a write-off, but round one is probably... It's no more than 4 points, but I think it's a huge test of where the team's at. Don't forget the second last round of last year, we absolutely got smashed by the Western Bulldogs. And I think by the end of the year, they were exhausted. And we saw that again in the last round of the year where, again, we just were not competitive against Hawthorn. So I understand what he's trying to say. I think he's saying that we don't want to start the year losing games by 10 goals and then pluck one and then lose by 10 goals. I think he's talking about being more consistent, so still being in games and making fans proud. I think that's another really big thing too, because I think at times last year it felt like all hope was lost at times. So I think that's what he's kind of referring to when he talks about that. But I think I'd rather see consistency at the same time. I think I want to see consistent effort. Sometimes you're not going to be good enough, Dean. I think you and I both agree that when we come up against the likes of Sydney and Brisbane, I don't think anyone's going to be expecting us to win, but I also don't want to show up and lose by 10 goals. So it should be about winning games against the sides that are around us. That's absolutely a must this year, and staying competitive in all games against sides that are clearly the benchmarks of the competition, like the GWS, etc. So that's what I'd like to see this year. Obviously, winning is the only way that we're going to move forward to. And I think us fans, I think, are long suffering, Dean. We've had such a treacherous sort of 5 years with this group that I think people are starting to become impatient. I think it's the first real year where people just want to see wins rather than, oh, that was a great effort or we did well. So there's expectation on them this year, and how they handle that is something I'm interested to hear your thoughts on too. Because I think that hopefully the group expects to go out there every week and win. And I don't want to have to come and speak with you again in 12 months time and be talking about, oh, we had a good year last year and we had patches in games and moments in games where it was really cool to see this player do this. We're past that, and I hope that they know we're past that too. It's a very long-winded answer to the question, but I obviously would like to see more wins, Dean. I think everyone would, but I'd also want to see less erratic performances, where you've got 1 week where we're competitive, the next we lose by 10 goals, then we win, etc. I want to see consistency and wins against sides that we are around the mark with.
Yeah, I'll go by Dennis Pagan's old saying. He goes, you're judged by your wins and losses. It's pretty simple. It's as simple as that, almost. And, we've only been winning 3 games, last 2 or 3 years or something like that. So we've got to start, getting more wins. If that means that you're going to get flogged in some games, then so be it. I'm quite happy to cop that. I'd rather win more games. I'd rather win 6 to 8. And, and if we get smashed at, a couple of games, so be it. It's a young team still. They're gonna learn a lot from losing games and big margins as well. So I'm not too worried about that. I definitely want to see more wins this year rather than just we'll win 4 games or 3 or 4 games, but we're competitive in 70% of them or something like that, and still flogging. So I mean that's I'm a bit old fashioned like that. So whereas this day and age it's very different. People look at it very differently this day and age, especially younger generation like yourself. But I'm getting older, Siobhan. I don't know how many more years I've got left in me, so I want to start seeing some wins. It'd be nice.
Of course,
But we'll start this Saturday anyway, and we'll go to team selection now. We've gone a very veteran-heavy team, which we kind of expected. Any surprises for you with selection?
I don't think there's any shocks. I think the team looks to me that outside of Wardlaw, and I'm surprised Eddie Ford's not in calculations. That was probably the one surprise. But yet again, I think that the sides that we put up against West Coast and Melbourne were always going to be around the mark, and that's kind of what we've seen. Really exciting to see Parker and Darling and Daniel slot in. I think the one surprise for me was Constanti. Not necessarily a really big surprise because, again, I thought when he got a lot of game time against West Coast that he probably might play. But I'd just like to see him give more to the side than just a bit of forward pressure. And I'm not putting any pressure on him. He's playing his first game and he'll serve a role, I think, but it'd be nice to see him add that forward pressure as well as hitting the scoreboard as well. So, I thought that they would go with one of either Constanti or Hansen Jr., so they've gone with both, which I found was an interesting choice, and I think says a lot about maybe freeing up Zerha and Curtis and that to kick goals, and then you've got the smalls that are adding some pressure. Not saying that those guys can't do that as well. That's the job of the smalls down there, but I think it just enables them to hit the scoreboard as well. So I didn't think there was anything that was too shocking there. Bryn Teakle and Finbar Maley being the emergencies makes me a little bit nervous regarding Larky's Corky, whether or not he's going to be right to go. I've always maintained this for about 5 years since we've been down in the dumps that our most important player, no matter who it is on the ground, is Nick Larkey, purely because of the responsibility he has on his shoulders as our key forward. Obviously, that pressure will be relieved a bit more with Darling down there, but if he's not playing, then I'm concerned about how well we go about scoring. He's still that important to our side, Dean. So, hopeful that he gets up and plays. That's an understatement. I like the fact they're starting Finn O'Sullivan in the centre, but I think he will play off half back. I know there's been a lot of discussion around that, but damn, he looked good in that role against West Coast. I don't know about you, Dean, but I didn't realise how athletic he was. So really exciting to see how he goes on debut, and not just, on debut, but on debut and really on half back. So he'll provide a really important role there. And we've spoken a lot about how the half backs look, and just even watching the 2 games on the weekend, I think the way footy's going is you score so heavily off how fast you transition the ball off half back. And maybe with Finn O'Sullivan and his great disposal and all the attributes that he has, it might lend itself to Caleb Daniel having a hand down there and seeing less of that dump kicking that we've seen for so many years. So I really like the team. Obviously, a few holes for players that are out with injury, like Wardlaw, and I'd like to see Goda and Hardiman get a shot soon. But not surprising to see McDonald and Tucker start either. They were probably my question marks. But yeah, I think it's a well-balanced side and a team that can really challenge the Dogs. The names that really stand out looking at this side are Norton and Darcy, and whether or not our boys can handle those two. The lack of Bont and Treloar and those guys there will probably help the supply going to those 2 big fellas. But personally, and I'm sure we'll touch on this throughout the podcast, Dean, but I just get really concerned when I see those sorts of really quality key forwards and how we'll go against them, not just on the weekend, but for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think the thing that concerns me, and I think this is why Costanti got picked, is the transition defense was pretty ordinary against Melbourne. And anyone with a bit of pace like Kosea Pickett, I was going to say Byron Pickett there, but that's going back a while. Kosea Pickett, anyone with a bit of pace and skill, they can easily break a line. So someone like Ed Richards, if he gets in the end of one from half back, they can quickly transition to football. It makes it very hard for our defenders to stop a Darcy or a Norton. So the pressure's got to be a lot better than what it is. And that's probably one of the reasons why they put Costanti in. He can put a bit of pressure on. And Hanson's got a little bit of pace. But we need, I think you mentioned, we need a team defence. And it starts with players like Zerha, Curtis, and just everyone else. Darling's generally pretty good with that as well. So, yeah, he has more than...
He's surprisingly so agile for his size and, not to sound crude, but his age as well. I think the way he tackled and he's like a brick wall. I was surprised to see how he pressured, not just in the forward line, but around the ground too, Dean. He's actually very mobile for his size.
Yeah. Oh, no, he's still got that athletic ability. I thought I was starting to wane a bit last year at West Coast, but he seems to have dropped a bit of weight. He seems to be more shredded this year. So whether they've just come up with a program for him there, I'm not too worried about Nick Larkey missing because we've got the reincarnation of Wayne Carey, Siobhan. How good has his pre-season been? I mean, he's been the best forward we've ever had since Carey.
Oh, Dean. Hopefully we've got this human next week and we can be saying exactly that.
I think, Kane Corns is going to be eating his words about the 40 goals. But
yes.
Look, he's going to play a role and he's still a very smart footballer. I think the key is, like, when we do get the ball, we obviously want to get it in quick, but we've got to keep it away from a player like Rory Lobb, don't we? He's going to intercept everything. He killed us last year because that defence is very frail from the Bulldogs. It's very inexperienced.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know much about him. I think there's a Freya who's played about 12 AFL games, a couple of others that I don't know much about. And this is an opportunity, and best case, opportunity for us to really expose him, isn't it? Effectively.
Oh, Dean, the second I knew Liam Jones wasn't playing, I got really excited by the fact that it might allow Nick Larkey to have a really big day. And obviously he's under this injury cloud, but they just work. He's such a good defender. He reads the ball in flight so well. He's like a McGovern. I think they're the similar sort of player that they get to the right spots, they take the marks and they use it well. So Rory Lobb's also a danger. And Dean, I'm just glad there's no Josh Bruce listed because I've got absolute nightmares on that guy. It just seems to be, and knowing knowing how we sometimes go about it, maybe Jay Dolan might kick 10, just knowing how sometimes we have this ability to just allow.
Yeah, I know.
It's,
Making average players look
crazy.
like,
Absolutely. But going back to the Dogs' defense, obviously Bailey Dale playing is disappointing for us because I think he's a really quality player and their equivalent of Caleb Daniel, I guess. He's a smart user and quite a good defender too. So that is certainly a part of the ground that we can expose them. Obviously, no Bont and Treloar in the midfield. That looks like another area of the ground, just having a look at the teams here, that we can expose them to, knowing that our strongest area of the ground is the midfield. But it gives Zerha and Curtis and Darling and Sheasel and all these guys a real opportunity to get a hold of the Dogs defense if the midfield does their job, which I think they will, to get the ball in quick. Use the ball well, because that gives Lob the chance to really intercept and come off his man if we don't use the ball well, which we just don't have the best track record of doing. But if we can really move it quick and get it in there, I think we have a chance of kicking a winning score for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've just looked at our team. We've got probably 6 midfielders that will go through the midfield rotation. That's Powell, LDU, Sheasel, Parker, Phillips and Simpkin. I don't think McKercher will go through there just yet. He'll probably play the high half forward role. I mean, you look at the Bulldogs midfield, they've got Libba, still a quality player, but they've got a young Riley Sanders, who should be playing for us, but that doesn't matter. And they've got Ed Richards' name there at the moment. They've got Matthew Kennedy, who's a big body from Carlton. They'll probably put him in there for spells as well. But this is an area of the ground where, if we want to win, we've got to really dominate them in the midfield, don't we?
Oh, Dean, this is the absolute moment for the midfield to shine, and this is the main course. This is the juiciest part of the burger for us. So we really, really have to stamp our authority in that area of the ground. I like that they've got Lou Parker starting as a follower. I don't think that will happen for the whole game, but I think that the most intriguing thing that I'm going to Marvel Stadium to see on the weekend is how we rotate the players through there as well. Because we've spoken about this. We've just got an abundance of midfielders and half forwards, and there's so many players that can go through there, and I think we can absolutely stretch the Dogs there. Libba's probably the only real big name in there. The English Sherry battle is going to be a really important one, and a battle that's going to be interesting to watch, because obviously Tim English is a high quality ruckman, and Tristan should have been the All-Australian of last year. So if he's able to get on top of English, there's no excuses as to why Powell, Parker, Simpkin, Davies Uniacke, O'Sullivan, Sheasel, McKercher, all these guys that will obviously spend midfield minutes in there shouldn't be winning a large majority of the ball. So if we lose on the weekend, Dean, I'm calling it very early and maybe very harshly, but it will be on the midfield and how they perform on the day. The better chance we are to keep the ball away, this is pretty simple footy 101, but if we're able to win the ball more than the Dogs and keep the ball away from Darcy and Norton, and I think they've got an array of really high quality smalls as well in Arthur Jones and Gallagher and Vandermeer. I just think that they're forward line, even without Ugle-Hagan, is very potent and one that we've struggled against, to say the very least. They always kick a really high score. But if we're able to dominate through there, and also, like you said, have a team defense, lock the ball inside 50, challenge, tackle, pressure, all these things, there'd be no reason why we can't come out on top at the end of the day.
No, definitely not. I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about team selection in the back line. Luke McDonald and Darcy Tucker both named. I'm not too sure where Darcy Tucker's going to play. He might play on the wing or rotate through there. I don't know if he'll play half-back. It looks like Finn O'Sullivan will play that half-back role, like you mentioned earlier. Yep. Both these boys, they haven't had the best of pre-seasons. I think that's been very public, especially on socials. Some people are already calling for Luke McDonald to be out of the team. His form hasn't been great. It's been okay, nothing great or anything like that. But, these two boys have got to start showing something too, don't they? Because they're the senior blokes of a very inexperienced team.
Are you talking about McDonald and Tucker here?
Yeah, both of them,
I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, Dean, because I knew that these two boys were going to get named. Being named on the interchange bench was interesting to me in itself, because I think clearly going into the game, it was going to be Comben, Core, Logue, Archer, Daniel and Scott. I think we probably knew this. Luke McDonald will play until there's a player that will take his spot, or he shows the coaching staff why he's not able to play in the team, if you know what I'm trying to say. Darcy Tucker will always get selected. I'm still with him. I don't quite know what his point of difference is. His experience playing game 150, so obviously congratulations to him. And he is a leader and an experienced head there that can be a bit of a steadying force, but there's no... I don't know what his X factor is. He has this ability to sort of chip the ball around 30, 40 metres and run around, and he's a high possession winner. He might just be there as a steadying ship and maybe holding down a spot until we can bring someone else in. But I knew they were going to start, and it wasn't a shock to see them, but it'll be interesting to see how long they're there for.
Well, especially if you start losing, their form's pretty average. Like you said, there's an infatuation with Darcy Tucker. Look, his form was quite solid second half of last year. It was quite good playing off half back. So I can understand him being named. I can understand Luke McDonald being named as well. But they wouldn't want to show. They would want to show a lot more than what I've seen in the pre-season. And, there'll be players knocking on the door. You mentioned Hardiman. Josh Goder will be back to full fitness in the next couple of weeks. You'd have to think. There'll be a couple others. Miller Bergman as well, who came on as a sub against West Coast a couple of weeks ago. But obviously wasn't named and, an out-of-contract player. They probably want to see if he's got it in him to get another contract. So, it's a very interesting team selection. So, I mean, no, like you sort of said, no real surprises. But, there's a few players that, that are probably on notice already. So we'll talk a little bit about the Bulldogs. Now, obviously, they're missing a lot of players through injury. I mean, they've still got a pretty strong team, haven't they, Siobhan? I mean, they've still got some very, very good players. I mean, Norton and Sam Darcy, they're pretty much the key, aren't they? If they get off the leash, it's going to be very hard to stop. And I know we've got some decent defenders in Lowe, Core, Comben, decent tools. But if we've got no pressure up the ground, then Darcy could have a field day and kick 7 or 8 quite easily.
I mean this in the most respectful way possible to our defenders, but I still feel like that's the area of the ground where we lack. I mentioned this last time I was talking to you, Dean, that we have players that are serviceable, but we don't have really good, high-quality key defenders. I think everyone's hoping Griffin Logue will become that. I'm still not fully sold on that. We just have players that are good. We've spoken a bit about Charlie Comben. He's an absolutely fantastic intercept defender and a really good athletic sort of tool that we have there, but I still worry about him one-on-one.
There's been a lot of talk about that. I think he got marked as one of the worst one-on-one defenders last year.
Which is most of our back six, to be really honest. Jackson Archer is probably an exception there, because I think he probably is more skilled in the one-on-one defending than he is in other parts of his game. So kudos to him, I guess, in that sense. But you get really nervous. And I think that was exposed in the preseason as well, that whenever the ball seems to go inside the opposition's forward 50, they usually score if there's not enough pressure up the ground. And I'm not solely blaming it on the defenders, but I just think we have players that try hard but are not outstanding. And we're all hoping that the likes of what's his name? Matt Whitlock, and Dawson and these guys really come on and become that Jacob Littering type for us, which I still think that we lack in the side, which is why whenever I see players like Sam Darcy, Aaron Norton, Jeremy Cameron, these sorts of guys that are really high quality players of the competition, you just have a bad feeling when you see their name on the team sheet when we play those guys. So to go back to your question, Dean, I think they do have really high quality forwards. It's probably, looking at this team sheet, is the strength of their team with the amount of sort of quality midfielders that they have out. And it's going to be a challenge if the ball comes in there with any sort of authority, that's for sure. So it's going to have to be an all-round team effort in that back line to get across the line, and across the whole ground. There has to be a team defense mentality. I think McKercher will spend a bit more time off halfback than we think. I don't know if you agree with me there, but yeah, I just feel like maybe he might be a force down there, or they'll try different things and see how they go. Who do you think plays on Darcy and Norden?
Well, you got probably Aiden Core will take. I think he'll take Norton, and Lowe will probably take Darcy. I'd probably try and free up Congben as a player that plays off, the interceptor, and he might just play on like a Harms or something like that. I think another thing that concerns me, I've got a lot of concerns at the moment, Siobhan. That's what happens when you follow North Melbourne sometimes. So, is small forwards, like they've got some decent ones, Vandermeer, Lockie McNeil. They almost concern me just as much as the big tall guys, because I mean Jackson Archer's, I think he could do a job on one of those two. Caleb Daniel, I'm not too sure who he goes on. He might go on a Matthew Kennedy, probably the worst of the forwards, because you want to release him. You don't want him to concentrate too much on the defensive side, because we need his skills out of the back half. But we don't have another lockdown small defender. I mean, is that wrong for me to be concerned about that?
No, I don't think so. I think, like we've spoken about, and this is not a bashing session on the defense, but there are a lot of holes. I still think there are a lot of holes, and Jackson Archer is the clear standout in terms of a player that can take a small or a medium type. But I do also have concerns about some of their smalls, because they have killed us in the past. And Jones, McNeil, West, Gallagher, they've got a plethora of them as well. Thank goodness Cody Waitman's not playing. That's all I can say, because we've really troubled us in the past, and he's as much as I dislike him as a player at times, really creative small too. So it's almost as if we struggle against what we don't have. That's why sometimes I laugh looking at this side sometimes, because we don't have a high quality small. We always seem to struggle against these types of players too. Yeah. It's hard to know who goes to who, but at the same time, you don't want to see them sort of pouncing out the back all the time either. I think that's my concern. We've seen that a lot in the past. So it'll be a challenge, and I don't necessarily have a solution to it other than Bailey Scott's helped out in that position in the past. And as much as I think Caleb Daniel is going to be a real force on the weekend, the Dogs will know his deficiencies and also his strengths. So I think that's something we've also got to be aware of too, that he is a great player in terms of being a distributor, etc., but not the best player one-on-one.
I think our next small defender is probably Luke McDonald. That's probably what, and not to bash him the whole show and say, well, why is he getting picked for or anything like that, but he does concern me a little bit with his pre-season form. I think he was on a sharp from Melbourne in the first pre-season game. He just did what he liked, and he's a rookie. Couldn't get a game at Gold Coast or wherever he came from. That concerns me a little bit. Game style. Now, we don't have an overly quick team. Do you think we play a similar sort of game style to how we played against West Coast last week? Last game of the pre-season, and not probably go to that run and gun approach that we did against Melbourne, I guess.
I do. I think you leave yourself really vulnerable. It's possible that we see a mixture of both, Dean. I don't know if your thoughts are the same as mine, but I think there's a time and place for that North ball, and I put air quotations in when I say that. I think that we just aren't quite good enough or skillful enough to play that type of game all the time. I loved Xavier Clark's comments on this a couple of weeks ago, where he said that would be the ideal way that we'd like to play, and we tried to do that last year, and then we saw a complete sort of change up in the way we played after it became quite clear that we were getting scored against so heavily, because we were just unable to stop the turnover and the damage that was doing when we weren't quite pulling it off. So I think that this year we'll see a lot of how we played against West Coast, which was a bit more patient, and we might see moments where we can play that North ball style. It also depends on who the ball's in the hands of, and I mean this in the most respectful way, but we've spoken a lot about this on the podcast, that we have players that you just trust with your life when they've got the ball in their hands, and others that are a lot more shaky. So I think maybe the really good distributors like a Harry Sheasel, even O'Sullivan, I probably put him in that bracket with how well he's been distributing the ball. That you would suggest that if they have the ability to go, they will go. But otherwise, it's probably best to just remain safe so we're not getting burnt on the turnover in a defense that is shaky, let's put it bluntly, that I still think is quite shaky. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, not to harp on about him, I'm just really excited to see him play. I think with Luke Parker, what type of role he plays in the midfield, whether or not he's the enforcer and the aggressor, in terms of his, I think what we've seen him do at Sydney is impose himself on games with his bigger frame, or whether or not Clarko will have him play as a half forward in that sort of role too. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we play and who plays where. I still think a lot of that's up in the air. I could be wrong, but I think the way we play also depends on who's where as well. We've got a lot of options now, which is actually quite exciting. We haven't really had this in a while, so it's good.
Yeah, I don't know, and I'll ask you this, what role Jai Simpkin is going to play this week as well. I think I spoke to, I think it was Jesse during the week, and I sort of said they've never really trialled him on the wing. And he said, yeah, he played a game in Noble's first win against Hawthorn a number of years ago now. He played on the wing and got 38 touches, and he goes, I never really tried it again. So, yeah, that obviously makes sense. That's what we do. But, yeah, I think he'd be a pretty good winger. He's got good running capacity. I guess you don't want him kicking inside 50 half the time because it could go anywhere. But, yeah, I think the wing would be a good option for him. I mean, we're dying to see McKercher, and you've sort of said, well, he might play half-back. I'd still like to see him trialled on the wing. They haven't tried that at all. They've just played him as a high half-forward. Are you a bit surprised by that?
So who would you have on your wings? Would you have Bailey Scott and then Jai Simpkin, and you'd have McKercher and O'Sullivan off half-back or in that sort of role?
Well, I'd like to see Simpkin on the ball to start with, because he looked really good in that Indigenous All-Stars game. He looked really ripped, playing midfield as well. I'd try that and put McKercher on the wing with Bailey Scott. But the problem is we've got so many midfielders, and I could squeeze out someone like Phillips. Parker, I'd just keep him in the forward 50 at this stage, unless we're getting desperate. Sheasel, and I don't know if you agree, but I still want to see him on the ball a lot at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I just want the ball in his hands. There's no point playing him playing a forward 50, getting 10 touches in a poor team. If he's in a poor team, which we still are a poor team, we're a bottom 3-4 team. Yeah. Then you've got to get these players in the midfield and getting the ball in their hands, getting 30, 35 touches.
Oh, that I agree with 100%. And it's just this issue has been around for so long that it's almost as if we are putting players in positions that they're not necessarily still best suited for, just to fit the fact that we've got so many of one type of player, which is a midfielder. So it's just hard with Jai because his form in that All-Stars game, how exciting was it? I just thought to myself, you're in for such a big year. And I also think that he'll really relish having the sole captaincy, Dean. I think he's someone that will love having that on his shoulders and will lead from the front. And I think there's a reason why most captains in the AFL are midfielders, because they have such a big influence on the game. So I truly think that he'll start in the guts, but then at the same time, where does that leave a Phillips? Or it's just hard to know where these players play, which, it's so funny that we're still having this discussion because it's hard to place them, but I think his best position is there. I like your thinking about having him on the wing, but is he quick enough? Or I just think his body type lends itself to being that inside mid, which we've seen him before, and also play at half forward because he has the ability to kick goals too. So I still think his disposal lets him down at times too. So whether or not that's something that he can continue to work on, or that's just kind of the deficiency in his game. And it's hard because where we put some of these players, I hope Powell stays in the midfield. That's my thought around him too. I think he's someone that should stay there because that's what his natural position. In my opinion, you probably shouldn't be putting him elsewhere because that's where he'll do his most damage. What do you make of Phillips? Do you think that he gets a tagging role, or do you think that he'll play more centre, just winning his own footy?
There's only one player you could tag, and that's probably Libba. And he's an in and under player anyway. I'm not a big component of tagging in, but it might be worth it because he's the only midfielder they got, and it puts pressure on Riley Sanders to step up. Maybe Ed Richards or Matthew Kennedy has to go in there. So it might be an option, but I think they won't start with it. Maybe see how the first half goes, and if Libba's getting on top, they might look to shut him down a little bit. But it's fair to say he's had a pretty good pre-season, Will Phillips, and definitely deserves an opportunity at the first bounce, I would have to say, on Saturday night.
Absolutely. I think he deserves his spot. And it'll be really interesting when George Wardlaw comes back, what his future and position at the club looks like. It depends really how he performs, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he goes because you're right, he deserved his spot in the side. And whether it's good to have that flexibility to know that he is able to tag a player if need be, if someone's getting off the chain. I think a player we haven't spoken much about is Ed Richards. He's quite damaging on his day, Dean. Don't sleep on him. So I think he's someone that maybe Will Phillips looks up. Whether he's got too much speed for him, I don't know. But he's someone that when I saw he was fit and ready to go, I thought, damn, because he's quite a good ball user as well. So it'd be interesting to see how Phillips goes. I hope he plays well, Dean. I just really hope that he has a good game, and he racks up good numbers as well. I think that might be what helps him stay in the side. I know it's a shallow thing to say, but I think if he comes up with a quality game with 30-40 touches, or 20-30 touches, then I think he'll stay in the side.
He's a type of player that probably he needs to take every opportunity, doesn't he? Because if he has a couple average games, I think we've seen it early last year with Charlie Lazaro. It was okay against Fremantle, but then had a couple of average games after that, and he was out of the team and then never got another contract. So Will Phillips, he can't afford to have a bad game or two, could he? Because with the number of midfielders we've got in the team, and you've got a number of other players in the reserves, which we'll talk about in a second, coming through that will be dying for that opportunity. He might, he could find himself out of the team pretty quickly, couldn't he?
That's where I feel for him because I think that I don't think he's able to play on any other part of the ground. I think he is a midfielder. We drafted him as a midfielder, and it's just really unfortunate that we've got so many of him, of his position on the ground. He's obviously on the 1-year deal, and I think that when Wardlaw's fit, he comes straight in, no matter what and for who. So it's important that he starts the year well. And like you mentioned, if only we could trial him as a key position defender, but it's not going to be possible. So he can't morph into something that's not who he is now, and that makes it quite tough. I don't know whether or not we even look at him potentially as a small forward. I know it's not his natural position, but maybe at times they try that. I don't know what his future looks like. All I know is that on the weekend he'll have a chance to play midfield minutes, and I really hope he goes well and he has an impact on the game. His preseason, you couldn't necessarily fault it. I don't think that he's the full package yet. I think he's still got some work to do on his game.
No, look, he still does. He's got to get a bit of a balance of his outside game as well. He's a good in and under player. Good in the centre square with that. So, he's just got to get that balance of the outside play. Generally, he's a pretty good user of the football as well.
Yeah.
He lowers his eyes. He finds targets. So, it's a bit of an underrated game. But there was a lot of games last year where you have 2 or 3 kicks and 15 handballs. So, he's just got to get that balance a little bit better in his game. But, you'll see how we go. Now, there's a few players out of the team I wouldn't mind talking about that are probably on the fringes. Zach Fisher, no mention of him. I think he's still alive. I'm not too sure. Zane Dersma's probably obviously still injured. Apparently got a quad injury. And I think the big one is Eddie Ford. Not even an emergency. A big contract year for him. And I think he's got a right, and I don't know if you agree with me, and I've mentioned this before, he's got a right to be a little bit annoyed that he's not getting an opportunity because we've got too many midfielders and we're just playing them in the forward line because they've got to play, I guess.
He's a real head scratcher for me, Dina. I think with Dersma, obviously he comes up on the club website as available, but I think with that calf injury, was it a calf or a quad? Or
I thought it was a quad, but don't quote me on it. That was a couple of weeks ago. So if he's right, he's right. So
I think he's good to go. I think he is right and available, but obviously it probably needs a little bit of time. And also, where do we put him, Dean? He's the real puzzler for the year, and I think the player I've got my eye on the most is Zane Dersma and how his second year goes and where he lands. I mean, is he a mid? Is he a half forward? What do they do with him, and how many games does he play? I think maybe just a little bit underdone, and I think it's probably the same for Fisher. Maybe he's a little bit underdone, or maybe Caleb Daniel's taken his spot in the side and we don't have a place for him yet. That's to be seen, I guess. Eddie Ford's the one for me that I agree with exactly what you said there, that he probably has a right to be a little bit confused as to why he's not even an emergency or not getting a look in. I think you hit the nail on the head. If the reason not getting a look in is because there's too many players in his position. Which is no fault of his own. But I thought the fact that there was not a lot of game time that he got through the preseason and then to not even be named is a weird one for me. There's obviously something they're asking him to work on. That I don't know because I don't think his role necessarily is to be that real pressuring type. He's a half forward that I think has a good overhead mark and kick a goal. He's good under pressure. He's really good attributes that I think are important for the side, but are getting overlooked for some reason. That I don't know. Unless the only theory I have is they've obviously gone with Hansen Jr. and Constanti, and you've got Curtis and Sheasel, who I think will float through there, and Zerha. So there's just too many of the same sort of player, and they've opted for two players there. I think Hansen Jr. on his day can be sort of that buzzing small, and then you've got Constanti that's the pressuring small, and then Curtis, of course, is I'm most excited for really this year when you're looking at him in the forward line that just delivers week in, week out. So there just doesn't seem to be a spot for him, which is a weird one. And he probably has every right to be a little bit confused as to why he's not getting looked at all, though.
Yeah, I think he's just got to, like, even in the intra-club match, he looked quite good in playing for the B team, pushing up the ground. But they really want to trial these two small forwards, which is understandable. You trial it and see how you go. But I still think he's the best 22 player in the right set of circumstances.
Do you think that by round 23, Robert Hansen Jr. and Constanti will be the two smalls that we go with, besides obviously Curtis, whose spot's not in question?
I think Geordie Payne will take over one of them. To be honest, I knew it. I think he'll take over Constanti because he's the two-way player. He's just got to get himself fit at the moment. He's just got to. Yeah, he would have been in. I've got no doubt about that. So I'll go with that anyway. So I'll make it.
It's a good point, Dean. I think it's nice to have options too, but it'd be interesting to see how close to the team in the last game of the year is compared to the one we've seen in round one. It would be very interesting to see.
Well, it was this time last year. I think we had Charlo Lazaro in the team. There's one or two others that probably aren't on the list anymore as well. So, I mean, the round one team doesn't define the whole season, that's for sure. Things change pretty quickly. And I think, by round 4 or 5 last year, we had a few bad losses and we'll make it 3 or 4 changes each week, which you kind of have to, trying to find a formula. So we're certainly not hoping for that at the moment. We're certainly hoping we can, not make too many changes and put in some good, consistent performances and get some wins on the board. Now, I know we're both going to think we're going to win, but who's going to be the match winner for us?
Oh, I like that question a lot. I haven't thought about it in that perspective. I like it. I'll go with a really simple answer here. The match winner will be the midfielders.
Oh, the whole midfield.
The
Yeah.
whole midfield. I'll go with. I'm looking at Sheasel. I'm looking at Davies, Uniacke, Simpkin, McKercher, O'Sullivan, Sherry, Powell, Parker. I think that the match winner will be the midfield. Whoever wins that battle wins the game. That's just my personal opinion. When you look at the Dogs forward line and the potency of that compared to their back line, which is obviously a bit undermanned, and their midfield's undermanned. So there's no excuses for that area of the ground. It's not every day you don't have what should have been a Brownlow medalist, one of the best players in the game, an All-Australian in Trelaw, and a couple of other guys that are missing from that area of the ground. So they have to take advantage of that. And it's the most hyped area of the ground. I think you don't have to be blind, Freddie, to know that that's the strongest area of the ground. And if they are serious about, bringing this club wins, and protecting other areas of the ground, which I think we struggle a bit more in, they've got to put on a really good display and dominate. And that's the way we're going to win the game. So match winner for me is the midfield. I think we know what we're going to get from LDU and Sheasel and these guys, but I'm excited to see what O'Sullivan brings, what midfield power brings. He's been so much hype around him in the preseason, Dean. So let's see if he can deliver on the big stage in round one. There's a lot here. I can also flip it on its head and say the match winners could be the defenders. Because
That'd be
at
nice.
the end of the day, if they're able to thwart the inside 50s and hold Norton and Darcy and I guess they're buzzing sort of small brigade to a low score and we're able to kick more at the other end, then they could be the match winners for us. So I'll look at it both of those ways, I guess. But I like to think that the area of the ground we can dominate in is the mids, and that flow on effect will be a win for us. So that's probably where I'm at.
Fair enough. Yeah.
What about for you, Dean?
I'm going to go Jack Darling because he should have kicked 10 goals by now in the preseason. He'll have his kicking boots on. He'll kick 4 or 5. So he'll be a match winner. The reincarnation of Wayne Carey. So just nicknaming the Duck. That's what I'll be saying on Saturday nights. But in saying all that, what's your final prediction then?
Oh, look, Dean, I actually think we're going to win the game. I really, in my heart of hearts, think that we can win. I'm not, again, trying to be dramatic or put any pressure, but this is only a game that's worth 4 points, but it's huge for the context of the season, for the belief of the side, for the narrative around the football club, for the signing of LDU. I think there's a lot that rides on this. If the Dogs were coming in full strength and the same sort of side that we faced in round 22 last year, I'd probably be talking very differently. But I think the players even know that they've got a real opportunity here to kickstart the year, get a win, which is just so important for this group because I think the West Coast loss last year was really disheartening and disappointing. And I hope that still burns in some way. Maybe they don't take it as personally as we do sometimes. But I'd like to think that was a real missed opportunity. And as a supporter base, we deserve to see more wins. And when there is an opportunity there, they've got to take it. They just have to. That's the only way we're going to turn this ship around is by winning games. That's just how you build a winning culture. And I'm sure this has been drilled home to them by the 3 recruits that we've got. And if the game's tight and close, I'd love to see the impact that those guys may have on the group, because we still don't know how to do it. We don't know how to win games. So let's see if we can break this duck and get the year off to an absolute flyer. And I really think that there will be no better opportunity against an undermanned Dog side to get our confidence and belief up. And I think we'll win by a couple of goals.
Yeah, I've got it something like 2 or 3 goals as well. Yeah. Like you said, best time to play them is right now with all the injuries they've got. And round one, anything can happen. Do you think the Heat will favour us or anything like that? That's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because I think there's going to be about 20 players cramping at 3/4 time from each team.
Absolutely. It's almost another factor in the game. It's a huge factor on the game. It's be very hot, especially under the lid at Marvel. I do think it'll have a big impact. And I don't know about the Dogs, but we look rock fit. Like we really do. Like the boys look like they're ready to go. And I guess playing those practice matches in the heat as well might have some sort of advantage. I don't know how much,
Yeah.
but I'd like to think that we're fit and ready to go and it won't have too much of an impact. But I'll tell you what, by the last quarter, I truly think it'll be a bit of a dogfight, no pun intended. I think that it'll be who wants it more, and it'll be a matter of really will and wants, and it's going to be real hard environment by the end of that. And it's always round one, everyone is struggling a bit. It's the first game of the year, but it could play a factor in the game for sure.
Well, you'd have to think it would. I don't know who's going to get the advantage out of it the most, but you might see both teams playing a little bit slower early in the game and saving your legs for the second half. Who knows? I'm not too sure what the tactic will be or anything like that, but we'll have to wait and see. There's a lot more questions than answers at the moment, so looking forward to about 10 o'clock on Saturday night when it's all said and done, and we'll see how we go. Anyway, Siobhan, did you want to add anything else before I let you go?
No, Dean, just really excited and I'm really hopeful and optimistic. And I'll screen grab this because maybe we're going to need this when we chat again soon. But I really think that this is such a grand opportunity for the boys to get some confidence and belief and start the year well. And it'll be really good for the supporter base because Wins have just been so bloody starved of them for so long. And there's expectation and excitement that I haven't seen for such a long time around this group, and it's time they deliver. It really is. I think that's the slogan I'm going into for the year, is time to deliver, and it's no better time than now. So really excited to see, and just excited to be back at the game and back at the footy and cheering the boys on. So I know it's a Doggies home game, but there'll be a big North crowd, I suspect, and and we play the D's in round 2, and I think we can really go into that game with some confidence that the year may just go our way. You never know. So feeling quite optimistic and excited, and just go Roos.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity to get off to a good start. I mean, I still have my queries about Melbourne in round 2. I still think there's a cultural problem there. I know they've looked good in the pre-season, but if they have a bad round 1 loss, they could fall apart pretty quickly, and you can get some disgruntlement between Clayton Oliver, Petrarca, and all that. So, I think it's not a bad time to get him early in the year as well. Anyways, we'll focus on this week. Siobhan, thanks so much for coming on. Your phone worked pretty well tonight, so no real issues, so no cutting out or anything like that. So that's good to hear.
No, hopefully I've got my my laptop back and working next week, so we can have a bit of screen time as well. But thanks again for the patience last week, and glad to see that it seems to have worked all right, which is good.
Yeah, no, it went really well this week, Siobhan, so that's good to hear. Just clear that search history on the laptop and you'll be fine. Anyways, thanks so much for coming on, Siobhan, and I hope to chat to you next week after a win.
Absolutely, Dean, anytime, and let's get this season underway. Can't wait.
Yeah, sounds good. And thank you to all you local listeners as well for tuning in. I'll be back probably Monday or Sunday evening, depends. I'll talk to the boys, hopefully to review a win. So look out for that show. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff to help out the show on YouTube. Tell your mates about it, Mrs. Whoever. But that's it from me. Bye for now, and go Roos. Well, that's it, Siobhan. So thanks for coming on, mate. No, there was